Hey guys, welcome back to Callie and Beans Books. I'm Brittany and this is another video for our book miss. I'm doing my contemporary wrap up for 2019. I've got my top 3, an honorable mention, and then my disappointments, and then a little blurb on adult romance. So my ultimate favorite book of this year is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. I love this book, guys. So this follows Eliza, and she's mostly socially awkward in her real life, but online she is Lady Constellation. She's the author of a very popular webcomic called Monstrous Sea, and nobody knows her real identity. There's hints about it, but mostly she keeps it a secret from everyone in her life except for her family, including her twin brothers. So that kind of plays a major role in the story. Another major part is that she actually suffers from social anxiety, but she doesn't know that. She knows that she's, a little anxious in social gatherings, but she hasn't actually been diagnosed with it. So we kind of understand that as the reader, but she doesn't. And then she meets Wallace, a shy jockey type guy that doesn't really talk, but we find out right away that he is one of the admins to her fan page. And so we kind of follow this dynamic as their relationship grows, that she knows his secret identity and all of his friends are part of the admin group and she fits right in with them, but he doesn't know that she's the author. And there's a lot of suspense with that, and there's a lot of build up to this reveal that we're like, okay, it's gonna happen now, and it doesn't. Okay, it's gonna happen now, and it doesn't. And then when the reveal happens, you're like, what just happened? So it was great all around. I really enjoyed this. I really was able to kind of connect to, in a way, my little sister, but kind of understand what she's going through in high school a little bit more, because I'm more of the socially outgoing person and she's more of the not wanting to talk to many people. She's very shy. So kind of getting that dynamic through a book was really nice. So yeah, I highly recommend this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 star. The next one is kind of intense. Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. Some major content warnings with this book. This book follows Charlotte, also known as Charlie, as she goes through some rough stuff. It starts with her in a mental health institute after she tries to commit suicide. So that's content warning number 1. She self-harms, and so that was the major theme throughout this book is her recovery. And there's other things that are kind of thrown in here. So there's physical abuse, sexual abuse, and there's also emotional abuse. There's also drug abuse by other characters, as well as alcoholism. It's very rough. This isn't a fluffy story by any means. It's very hard to read in certain points, but overall it's a very, very good story. It tackles a lot of topics that you don't really read, especially in YA stories. It is fiction, but the way it's so powerful makes it seem like this is a real person. And so I do highly recommend this book. However, I just want to warn you guys that it's not an easy read by any means. So it's one of those things where I even had to take some time in between some chapters to kind of just reflect and take a second to realize, like, this is real. This isn't something that's just made up. People do go through these topics. So just keep that in mind if you do pick up this book, but I do highly, highly recommend it. The last book in my top 3 contemporaries from 2019 is A Dress for the Wicked by Krause. I love this story. It's very unique. We follow Emma as she embarks in this costume contest, and it starts out right away. So she pretty much goes to this audition to show off some of her designs. She originally isn't chosen, but then they have a change of heart because she's from the small town area. So they're like, oh, well, we can't have everyone from the big city. So she's chosen as like a publicity stunt in a way. Even though she is very talented, she's kind of just thrown into this competition as a second thought. And the main fashion designer that's hosting this competition doesn't really believe in her. At first you might think that she does, but she actually doesn't. So it's kind of fun to really get that dynamic. I honestly thought that it was going to change, but it didn't. It also follows Emma as she tries to create relationships and friendships with the girls in the house. It really reminded me of Project Runway and the Selection series, kind of all woven together. There isn't a lot of violence like Selection series, but there is kind of a little bit of betrayal in there. There's friendships, there's betrayals, there's lots of fashion. It's fun. I really enjoyed this book. The only thing I really didn't like was the way it just ended. I thought that the ending was a little weird, and some of the pacing I wasn't a huge fan of. But the relationship that starts in here is also a really nice, kind of a slow burn romance that kind of takes place through the entire story, instead of like bam romance. So this is another book that I highly recommend. Honorable mention does go to the Selection series by Kiera. I loved these books. I was a little apprehensive at first, but I just kind of whizzed right through these. These were really nice and fluffy with some action, and it's kind of like a dystopian contemporary. You've got love triangles, you've got friendships, you've got betrayals, you've got rebellion. It's just everything I could ask for in a book, to be completely honest. I love the original trilogy. The duology that goes along with it, meh. But overall the books are really enjoyable, so if you're looking for something that's kind of fluffy with a little action, I definitely recommend the Selection series. So the next books I'm going to talk about were disappointments that I went into reading these as, okay, these are going to be great, however they were pretty bad. So the first one I actually unhauled already. It is 7 Ways We Lie by Redgate. I was drawn to this book because of the cover, and the synopsis kind of introduced the 7 deadly sins. We follow 7 characters and 7 different perspectives around this one secret. One of the characters that we actually don't know who going into it is sleeping with a teacher. So it kind of follows this story on the 7 different characters, how this news affects them, and just kind of the relationships that they all develop. I got nothing from it. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, each of the characters represents one of the 7 deadly sins. This is going to be great. You don't get that. There's really no connection. There's no introduction to it. It's just these characters going through life with this big secret that's revealed and how they are affected by it, and that's it. I thought that maybe, okay, after I realized that wasn't going to be the case, maybe it's going to be, they're just going to introduce the 7 deadly sins as themes. It still wasn't really brought, so it was just kind of a marketing tactic that I was like, okay, this kind of sucks, because that was the main reason I was drawn to the book, and the story just kind of fell flat. It wasn't something where I was like, I really recommend it, and I was even looking on reviews on Goodreads about halfway through the book. I was like, all right, I'm just going to check and see if it gets better, if it's just me, what's going on, and I actually saw polarizing reviews from it. Some people really, really loved it. Others kind of felt the same as me, so I'm like, okay, great, I'm not alone. And then I was like, maybe I'll just not finish it, but I haven't gotten to that point in reading where I'm like, I'm fine just not finishing a book, just because I'm always curious, like, okay, how is this actually going to end? So I stuck with it. I ended up getting rid of it pretty soon. I like the cover, but at the same time, I don't need it on my shelf, taking up space, so it's gone. The second book that I found was a disappointment was Fangirl by Rowell. This book is well loved in the booktube community. However, I really wasn't a fan. We follow Kath as her and her twin sister head to college. She's a fan fiction writer, and everything about it was just not good to me. I liked her love interest and then her roommate, and that was pretty much it. The relationship between her and her twin sister and the relationship with their dad was it felt forced in a way. I probably would have stopped reading this if it wasn't one of our books of the month. So I really won't go into full detail. So since this was one of our books of the month, I'm not going to go into full details on how we felt about it. You can actually go ahead, if you want to, go ahead and check that video out. It'll be linked below. But overall, I was really disappointed with this book. So like my reading journey this year, I was dipping my toe in the water of a lot of genres. And one thing that I was kind of drawn to was adult romance, because I really like the love story aspect of books, and I really like the floofy kind of stories, but YA is getting kind of young for me when it comes to those stories, just because, you know, it's kind of themed around first loves or coming of age stories, and I'm like, I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of old for it. So I dipped my toe into some adult romance, and the two that I really read and fell in love with this year was The Hating Game by Sally Thorne and The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I love these books. Both of them have the enemies to lovers theme, which is my favorite. I absolutely love it. The Hating Game follows two assistants to the CEOs of a publishing company, and they're from separate companies that merged, and they're set up to hate each other, and you go through this entire story where she's trying to date another guy and he's all trying to sabotage it, and then all of a sudden he's like, let's do this, and she's like, what are you talking about? And it's steamy and very nice. I actually like the ending of this more than The Unhoneymooners. I actually really enjoyed the way it tied up. It didn't feel as forced, didn't feel as rushed, but The Unhoneymooners is just as good. It follows a couple that are introduced through siblings and best friends. So her twin sister is marrying the brother of her enemy, and they all get food poisoning except for the two. So they actually get to go on this vacation that her twin won, just because they can't, and it's non-refundable, and they don't want to miss it. So they go to Hawaii. They're going on this great vacation, and that's kind of where their relationship starts kindling, and one thing leads to another, and it's steamy and nice, and I appreciated it. So I'm looking forward to reading more books by Christina Lauren. It just hasn't gotten to that yet. So next year I plan on, you know, ordering a lot of adult romance, and I have a couple on my shelf that I want to get to, so that's something that I'm looking forward to in 2020. So for my anticipated contemporary reads, I'm just going to give you the top 6, so one from each month. So starting in January, I'm looking forward to Don't Read the Comments by Eric Smith. In February, I'm looking forward to The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. In March, this one was actually kind of tough for me. I was looking at some of the March releases, and nothing was really like jumping out at me as much, except for The Love Hypothesis by Laura Steven. That one's kind of interesting. In April, I'm looking forward to It Sounded Better in My Head by Nina Kenwood. In May, I'm looking forward to More Than Maybe by Erin Hahn. Finally, in June, I'm looking forward to Reconnected by Catherine Tinker. So you'll hear more about my anticipated reads tomorrow. And as we're continuing with Bookmas, we'll be posting videos every day until December 24th. And be sure to hit that little bell icon, be notified when we post new videos, and be sure to like and comment. I would love to hear what contemporary books you guys have read, what I should look into. I'm always open to recommendations. And then be sure to follow us on Instagram and Goodreads. Until tomorrow, bye!